Welcome to My Long Island TV, the show that features the people and events that make Long Island great. In this episode, we highlight education in science. Take a bumpy drive along the beach for a look inside the Fire Island School. TV and Hollywood legend Alan Alda shares his tricks on how to be a better communicator. Brookhaven National Lab invites the public inside the only particle accelerator in North America. Physics and fun collide at the Mother Cabrini Festival in Brentwood. Now let's get started.
My name is Joan Soldano. I am a 6th grade teacher at Oregon Middle School. Welcome to My Long Island.
It's early morning in Fire Island, a perfect day for an off-roading adventure. The only problem is that this is not an off-roading adventure story. We're on a school bus on our way to the Woodhull School in Fire Island.
We're really the best kept secret there is. A public school with a private flair.
How private? The Woodhull School offers pre-K through 6th grade education to less than 25 students.
We have 4 main classrooms. Pre-KK is a combined grade with 1 teacher, 1st and 2nd standalone grade with 1 teacher, 3rd and 4th, and 5th and 6th.
The district starts at the Coast Guard station on the western part of the island and includes many of the small communities along the shore of this barrier island. To reverse a drop in enrollment, the district recently started accepting students from the mainland.
We'd like to have more students, which is why we opened it up to non-resident students. But we like that we're able to give that individual attention to each student. It's what makes us special.
The Fire Island School District is almost 100 years old, and while some have suggested that it merges with another school district, the idea makes little financial sense for the residents.
We've done several different consolidation studies, and taxpayers know that if we were to consolidate with another district, our taxes would go up 6-fold. Certainly nobody wants to see that happen.
The students are getting an envious amount of individual instruction. The curriculum is modeled after the International Baccalaureate Primary Years program, which is more student-directed. And since the school is one of a handful within the U.S. National Park System, there's a focus on environmental education.
Each classroom has 4 to 5 environmental ed days built into the calendar. And the whole purpose of it was so that the kids appreciated the special environment where they live.
What do you notice about the way that the leaf feels? Welcome to Woodhull's 3rd and 4th grade classroom. We come here often when the weather is permitting. Today we have our environmental ed teacher with us. Over the past few weeks we have been studying adaptations of animals and plants. Today we're going to be making observations of how plants survive here on Fire Island during the winter months. Make notice of what plants were closest to the beach. The challenge is that you're teaching 2 grades. So as a teacher, it's really important to be organized and to be structured in order to be able to get the curriculum in for both grades. So I have to teach math twice a day. I have to teach social studies twice a day. I need to be able to get all the content in for both grades and make sure that I'm meeting the standards for each student.
So my computer has the software that talks to this 3D printer, right?
Debbie is a teacher integration specialist. She's been teaching the kids how to code, so she developed programming projects that reinforce the current curriculum.
The students are studying ancient history, the 6th graders. We thought, okay, they're going to build the Parthenon and they're going to build the Trojan horse.
They also built the ancient city of Machu Picchu. These projects are created with the input of multiple departments for a holistic approach to education.
Larger schools function in such silos that certain departments don't communicate with other departments. So these kinds of projects, these kinds of endeavors are more difficult to reach.
As we toured the classrooms, the students were synchronizing robots to dance to a song, they were editing Black history biographies in iMovie, and speaking Spanish.
Muchos colores: rojo, azul, anaranjado, amarillo.
And we entered music class to the theme of a champion.
Everyone is in the band here. We're very flexible, obviously, with what they do within the band. Some years we have had students hop on the drum set, like Thomas this year, and I love that, and I think it's really cool that they all get to do everything together. Having a small population to do music with in school it allows us to do so much more than we might otherwise be able to do. The best thing is that it helps students step up more. We find that they really rise to the expectations.
Welcome. My name is Dale.
Interestingly enough, any child anywhere on Long Island can attend the Fire Island School.
It's up to the families how far they're willing to travel. We have several bus stops on the mainland where we pick up non-resident students. So we have one at the town of Islip, and we have one in West Islip, and of course we pick up at Captree.
Simply put, what's going on at the Woodhull School is impressive. You can send your child there for the individual classroom attention, and my favorite, that fantastic daily drive on the beach. Coming up next on My Long Island TV, TV and Hollywood legend Alan Alda shares his tricks on how to be a better communicator.
Tonight we have Hollywood royalty, TV royalty, Alan Alda. Alan Alda has just written a terrific book. If I understood you, would I have this look on my face? It's about his experiences in how to communicate and relate to people better. Stuff he's gathered from his acting experience and from working with scientists on Scientific American Frontiers.
Scalpel.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just a TV doctor.
Starting with MASH, Alan Alda has played dozens of iconic medical and political roles. Why so many?
It's because I look so much better in a suit than a loincloth. Way better. Doctor poses.
Truth is that he's always been fascinated by science.
I don't understand why everybody isn't thrilled by science. How extraordinary each new discovery is. It really is the main reason why I work so hard to help scientists communicate better, so the rest of us can have this pleasure of hearing from them what's under the surface in nature.
Hi, I'm Alan Alda, about to launch what promises to be a challenging new adventure as host of Scientific American Frontiers.
As host of Scientific American Frontiers, Alan helped humanize researchers and their complex thoughts, which led him to partner with Stony Brook University to establish the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science.
We've trained 8,000 scientists and doctors across the country and around the world. But in the process, I realized that it was really for everybody. And so the book is aimed at people in business, husbands and wives, lovers, parents and children, especially when one scientist said, "This training has saved my marriage." I thought, no, hey, wait a minute, we're onto something big here.
The start of something big came during a near-death experience Alan had while filming a show. He was rushed off to the ER with what was thought to be a ruptured appendix. But the surgeon in the operating room had different news.
And he said, "Here's what's happened. Some of your intestine has gone bad, and we have to cut out the bad part and sew the two good ends together." And I said, "Oh, you're going to do an end-to-end anastomosis." He said, "How do you know that?" I said, "Oh, I did many of them." If a patient believes that the doctor is empathic, that is paying attention to what's going on in the patient is 19% more likely to follow the doctor's advice. I mean, there might be lives saved in that 19%.
To help others be more empathetic, Alan used an old technique that helped him as an actor. improv.
I'm looking in the mirror, and it's up to me to make sure you mirror me. Because if I go like this, you're a little behind me, right? What does that have to do with communicating? If she's going to be following me, the dean is going to follow me, it's my job to make sure she's following me. So if I'm explaining something complicated to you, I have to make sure I go slow enough or plainly enough, make it logical enough, so you can follow me.
In another exercise, one person had to pretend to be a teenager, asking his parents to triple his allowance. Then Alan threw in a twist.
Can you picture what color the eyes are on your parents? What color is your parents' hair? Just keep it to yourself. We found at the Center for Communicating Science that this approach to communicating really works. I think Einstein said something like, if you can't explain it to a child, you don't understand it yourself. Marie Curie said a similar thing. You know, I would amend it a little bit. If you can say it so they can understand it, that's terrific. But if you can say it while you're checking out whether or not they're understanding it or not, that's even better.
Coming up next on My Long Island TV, Brookhaven National Lab invites the public inside the only particle accelerator in North America. Each summer, Brookhaven National Laboratory opens its doors to the public for 4 Sundays. Today we visit RIC, the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, a large particle accelerator.
It's actually 2 particle accelerators. Each of those particle accelerators is in a circle close to 2.5 miles around. The 2 accelerators then are allowed to cross over each other at 6 places where we can put detectors to run experiments. When the particles are going around those big rings, they're going at 99.995% the speed of light.
To create the collisions, multiple nuclei of atoms must be directed to go in a circle and stay inside the ring.
So we have 2 different kinds of magnets that perform those 2 functions. One is the kind of magnet that bends them in a circle, and another is a focusing magnet that keeps them in the middle of the ring.
RIC is the only collider in the United States. There is a larger one on the Swiss-French border called the Large Hadron Collider, but they have different goals.
There were really 2 main physics goals for this program. One was to look for this predicted phase transition in nuclear matter at very high temperatures. We found that this new state of matter does exist. It has very different properties than were expected before we ran the RIC program. We were expecting to find something that behaves like a gas, and we found something that behaves like a liquid.
And even within RIC, the 2 large experiments have different functions.
The star detector behind me, you can see it's symmetric around the center. So our strength was to try to measure everything that comes out at all angles with slightly reduced resolution. The Phoenix detector has a smaller acceptance. They've got detectors only on part of the circumference, but they go for the higher resolution. So we each have our fortes, but we can also cross-check each other's data.
When operational, scientists work on RIC for 6 months every day, 24 hours a day. But for this tour, the public gets to see the units disassembled as they undergo scheduled maintenance.
This is actually our experiment hall, and this is actually where we connect to the tunnel where the collider is. So the collider brings beams from either side of this room into the experiment hall, and they're allowed to collide directly in the middle of the hall. We very slowly move the entire experiment, and it weighs about 1,500 tons. So it takes us about 8 hours to move it just a little bit, where then we seal everything together and we run the experiment.
In another area, the public gets briefed on the accelerator before going into the underground tunnel to see how it all works.
So there are multiple tubes inside of here. So you have one single cryostat for each ring, blue and yellow. They'll run in opposite directions.
The 2 rings contain almost 200 dipole magnets. These bellows provide the bend necessary to complete the ring. And for a look inside the ring, we had to go outside the building to a demonstration unit.
This small pipe in the middle is where the beam actually circulates through the RIC machine. The center section here is what we call the cold mass of the magnet. So this is the magnetic structure. This is cooled with liquid helium to 4.5 degrees Kelvin, or about minus 450 degrees Fahrenheit.
In order for the magnets to maintain those cold temperatures, a vacuum is created and the tube is lined with mylar insulation. The public also gets to go behind the scenes into the control room and into the data center where all the results are stored and studied. The entire experience amazed kids and parents alike.
I'm an engineer, my wife's an engineer. We've always been into science, so we're hoping the kids can, keep it going and hopefully follow that field.
It's a great tour, and the Smasher machine is really big. My favorite part is basically coming here.
The excitement that you can have about this science is something you can have at any age. When you see it in a child, you realize that there's a future for that child of understanding this and perhaps carrying through research like this far down the road beyond our time.
Coming up next on My Long Island TV, physics and fun collide at the Mother Cabrini Festival in Brentwood. Each year, the Mother Cabrini Feast attracts thousands of thrill seekers to the grounds of Suffolk Community College.
Mother Cabrini, it's the biggest Italian festival on the island. We have 30 rides, quarter mile of food and entertainment. It's just a really good time.
And for as much as we want to take advantage of that quarter mile of food, we're here to feed our brain. Today, the fair is a classroom where kids learn about the physics behind Newton Show's fun rides.
There are 3 laws that relate to this particular ride, and the scientist's name is Newton. I am a scientist who loves to inspire young kids to do hands-on science. Science is everywhere, so this basically was my laboratory. So what we did is we walked around, we picked a few of the rides or the attractions, and identified what were the physics principles related to that. Newton's first law says whatever is in motion stays in motion unless there's a force that would act on it. Once they turn that on and you're in your bumper car, whatever direction it is, it's going to continue in that direction unless something happens. Newton's second law says the force is equal to your mass times the acceleration, which is related to speed. If there's a huge force when you're moving, what do you think is going to happen to your acceleration? It's going to go up. And this relates to Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So that means if we have 2 cars and they're colliding, what's going to happen?
They're going to bump out.
They're going to bump, and are they just going to do it randomly? No, they're going to go the opposite way. A pendulum, it's when you have a mass called a bob that hangs from the bottom of a string or pole, and we're going to have it swing. According to Newton's first law, once this object is in motion, it will continue in motion unless there's a force that is applied that would stop it. This is inertia, which is what's keeping it in motion. When it swings down, it would be gravity that is pulling it down this way, and then it swings the other way, inertia. When you're going to go on this ride, what's the best seat on this ride?
The edge.
Why?
Because that's where you get more air time.
Yes, and more inertia, so you're going to feel more of that weightlessness. Now, this is an example of linear motion. Can anyone tell me what that means?
Up and down.
Up and down, exactly. We have 2 types of energy we can talk about now called potential energy and kinetic energy. So once you take a seat and you're strapped in and it starts moving up, do you think we're going to be talking about potential energy or kinetic energy? Potential, because potential energy is stored energy. So all that energy that was pent up or stored up is now going to be transferred, and as it drops, the higher that tower is, the faster it would roll down to the ground. This is one of the coolest rides here, the alien abduction.
What? There is no stress. Did we hold on to these over here?
You're going to feel 3 times the force of gravity in there, and you will not be able to move. Even if the bottom drops, you will not fall down. And that's an example of centripetal force. Can you tell me if this is also an example of a pendulum?
Yes.
Yes. Now, the other pendulum was very simple. It was just rocking back and forth. Well, this one, not only is there some rocking, but there's centripetal force, so there's a circular motion, as you can see. This is it for the class. What were some of the words that we talked about today?
Inertia.
Inertia, gravity, potential, kinetic energy, right? I hope you realize you learned physics today. What I call the physics of fun, because you got to do it outside and apply things that you would normally learn, if not now in school, but later in school, in a fun way. Nice job.
Well, that's our show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. You can watch this show and other award-winning videos anytime at MyLITV.com. Remember to friend us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, and email any stories you want featured to stories@MyLITV.com. In the meantime, enjoy your Long Island and tune in to see where we go next on My Long Island TV.